be already. Okay. I believe we're streaming now on YouTube, right?
I believe so.
I believe
Yes,
so.
please.
So
Sure.
fantastic.
Yes.
I said, okay. Good evening, everyone. I believe we're streaming now. Yes. On YouTube, right?
I believe so.
I believe so. So
Sure.
fantastic. I
Okay.
said, good evening, everyone. I believe we're streaming now. Yes. On AJ, I'm going to need you.
I believe so.
Believe so. So fantastic. I said, good evening, everyone. I believe we're streaming now. Yes. I don't know what happened. AJ, I'm going to need you.
The YouTube.
Yeah.
The YouTube.
Okay, I see.
Perfect.
I figured it out. This technology, may the Lord help us.
Amen.
We need to grow with it. I'm trying. I'm trying. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O. We are here for another night of learning and empowering each other. I am Toyin Okwesomi, a physician in Maryland. I'm a family practitioner, and I enjoy coming every Monday to just learn as well as, impart into others. So tonight we have our very own attorney, Morenike Euba Oyenusi, who is a Nigerian-American author, publisher, lawyer, minister, and graduate of the University of London and Jesus College, Cambridge. She is a senior assistant county solicitor with Howard County's Office of Law. She also writes children's fiction, inspirational, nonfiction, and poetry. Morenike's publishing, or I'll say Ms. Oyenusi's publishing imprint, Paradise Restored Publishing, was set up in 2020 during COVID, believe it or not, and has published Ms. Oyenusi's 3 award-winning books, Chasing Butterflies in the Sunlight, Isaiah and the Orchestra of Sounds, which we talked about on Medical Mondays, I think 2 weeks ago, and The Shepherd's Care. In addition, Paradise Restored Publishing has published Dr. Patricia Alade-Koba's Solace, Empowering Pastor's Wife to Prevent and Overcome Burnout. Ms. Oyenusi's favorite pastimes are reading, traveling, hanging out with her children and friends, going to the theater, watching movies, and going on very long walks. I can attest to that. She loves to walk. So, our own attorney, I'll remember to say Morenike going forward. Oyenusi, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
This. We also have tonight to support her because this sister of mine comes with a wealth of knowledge, and she's so caring that she will share in a heartbeat to empower and to positively impact. Madam Lara Okunubi, Philanthrepreneur, who is a graduate of business administration with a BS and MBA, certified by Cornell University in measuring and improving business performance. She's a certified project manager for nonprofit, certified in person-centered thinking and PC plan facilitation. She provides coaching, consultation, mentoring, training to organizations from a person-centered perspective to help inform both leadership and workforce on competencies for desired growth and success. Madam Lara is the CEO and Executive Director of NAPAC CDI, Ideal Milestones, Ideal Program Services, a community advocate and founder of Compassion Without Borders. She's a member of several organizations advancing quality of life for people with disabilities. Madam Okunubi is a happy mother of 4, a successful entrepreneur, and dedicated philanthropist. She is passionate about contributing and transforming lives. One of her guiding mantra is, when support improves, outcome also increase, a principle that has distinguished her as an effective leader, advocate for empowerment and systems change. Welcome, my darling sister, Madam Lara. And you hear me fondly call her Madam VP or Madam CEO through this program. Welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Without much ado, I'm going to hand over to Morenike.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks
Good
for
evening.
being here tonight. When Dr. O mentioned that it was just 2 weeks ago that I was on the program, honestly, it feels like it was several weeks ago because so much has happened since then. It's just, the weeks just seem to be packed full of all kinds of activities. But without much ado, I want to talk to you tonight and share with you and have a discussion with you about coping with loss. And my presentation is entitled The Power of God's Grace and Human Kindness. And I have an agenda here of the things that I'm going to talk about. And the first thing I'm going to do is give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about. So as Dr. O said, I'm a lawyer and a writer. I'm also a mother to 3 wonderful children. My son, Femi, is 27 and he's married. He's been married for 2 years. And I have 2 daughters who are 23 and 20. So in addition to my role as a mother, I was also once a daughter, once a wife, and once a sister. I stand before you today, or sit before you today as someone who has experienced profound loss, but also immense grace. Over the span of 1 single year, I faced the unimaginable. I lost 4 very close family members in just over 1 year. In April 2020 rather, shortly after the pandemic began, I lost my father on April 14th, which actually was my mother's birthday. And then on April 27th, I lost my mother the day before what would have been my father's birthday. So his birthday was April 28th and she died on April 27th. And then in October 2020, I lost my brother, who was also my only sibling. And then in June 2021, I lost my husband. So I've had 4 losses. And in addition to that, of course, there have been friends, a couple of friends and a couple of other relations that I've lost since then. But I'm going to focus on these 4 losses. The journey that I've had of grief has been really overwhelming. But I can also testify to the incredible power of support from people and the awesome grace of God, which has really helped me in this journey. So today I want to share my story with you and also share with you how it inspired me to write my picture book called The Shepherd's Care. And The Shepherd's Care is a picture book that I wrote for children ages 4 to 8 who are or might be going through grief, because children are often called the forgotten grievers. And in the midst of my grief, I really realized that children needed a special book to help them. So let me just go on to the next slide. So losing my parents and my brother, my husband, in such a short time honestly left me in a state of disbelief as well as profound sadness. Each loss was devastating in itself. Each loss was devastating. with each loss was different. Each was individual. I had different relationships with my father, different one with my mother, different one with my brother, one with my husband, and my parents were my support. They were my cheerleaders. They believed in everything that I was doing. As a child, they encouraged me. They did whatever they could to give me the best education, to take care of me and my brother. They were just really the best parents. And I'm not just saying that lightly, and even till they died, they were there to support me. They continuously were there for me to ask for advice, to help me and to be there for my children as well. And my children were extremely close to them, extremely close to them. And my brother was my confidant to whom I talked daily, especially after my parents died. We talked every day, and we shared a common history. He was just a few years, he was 6 years younger than I am. And, I'd known him basically all my life, and he had known me all his life. And he was somebody with whom I could share everything that was going on in my life. So each relationship has been different. They're not fungible. Each one has a particular impact on me. One day I might remember my mother, and then another day I might remember my dad, and then another day it will be my husband, and then it might be my brother, So it's probably, I would imagine that it's probably taking me 4 times as long to get over the losses as they would a single loss, because, there's just so many things, you're going through life and every little thing reminds you of one person or the other. And I'm sure many of you on this show tonight who've had losses, you can testify to that. You know exactly what I'm saying, that it doesn't take much for you to be triggered to remember a loved one that you have lost and to remember different things about them. So that's the journey that I've been going through, and I'm still going through it. It's been 3 years since my last loss, but it still continues. And so there we are. The emptiness has been unbearable at times, and the grief at times has felt insurmountable. And the loneliness has been profound. I mean, I just, after they all left, I just didn't know what to do with myself, my children, my son got married, and then my children were in college, and it was as if I literally lost a whole support system. But I want to take you back just to give you a little bit of background. Even before the losses, my traumatic journey, or what I call my traumatic journey, had started. Several years before that, my father had a stroke, and then eventually he continued still to work as a university professor at the University of Pittsburgh, even after he had the stroke. So he worked for several more years before he retired, and then he came to live in Maryland with my husband and me and my children. So it was very much a part of our household, but I was his primary caregiver. Even though we had caregivers during the day come and look after him, I was his primary caregiver, and we shared a very close relationship. And then in 2016, my husband had 2 strokes. He had one earlier in the year, and then a couple of months later, we realized that he'd had another one. And those strokes impacted his memory and his executive functioning skills. So physically, he wasn't that impacted, but he had trouble with his memory and with other things. And so I became his primary caregiver as well. And then in 2018, he had a heart attack in 2018. And actually earlier that year in 2018, my mother had an accident in Lagos. She was on the side of the road with her sisters buying plants in a park in Lagos when a tractor trailer went by, and the tire of the tractor trailer spun off and hit her in the head. And she lost consciousness. She was rushed to hospital. She went into a coma. She'd suffered a traumatic brain injury. And eventually she was brought to the United States, where, we had her in rehab, in therapy, all kinds of different interventions to help her, to save her, and to continue to heal her. So in 2018, we had those 2 traumatic events with my husband's heart attack and then my mother's TBI. So for many years, I was a significant caregiver to all these family members, so that once they were all gone, adjusting to a significant reduction in my caregiving load was in itself very difficult to adjust to, even though I had, it seems I had more time, but again, I had spent so much time pouring out my love on these people, and then they were gone. So, thank God for my children. Thank God that my children were there. But I want to say that I missed all that darkness. There were beacons of light. After I lost my parents, my pastor was a significant source of comfort to me. Honestly, his support made me feel like a little girl who had a loving father. He would call me and he would ask me basic questions like, what had I eaten and what did I eat? And, a couple of weeks ago, I was at a seminar with Dr. O and some others, and I was sharing this testimony about how my pastor was, how he did these things, and he would call me. And then the very next day, I went to a function. Just last Sunday, I went to a function, and I saw him at the function, and the very first thing he asked me was, had I eaten? And I almost burst into tears, and I said, I can't believe you're asking me that again. It's been 3 years and you're still asking me that question. So he, along with other people, embodied the grace and love of God. Other people that God sent to me and my children, they provided a safety net for us that prevented us from just drowning in grief. So I'm going to speak briefly about the shepherd's care, the inspiration for the book and the message. I already talked about the fact that it was inspired by my pastor's care and other acts of kindness and support. I wrote the Shepherd's Care as a picture book for children, as I said. And in this story, 6-year-old Lydia suddenly loses her father. And through various acts of kindness shown by her teacher, friends, her pupils at her school, her hairdresser, she learned about empathy and community support. It's just a simple story, but it shows how when we're grieving and people come to us and they do little things for us, it's such a source of comfort and extraordinarily help. And it really helps us along that journey. So in that book, Lydia learns about empathy and community support. And at the end of the book, she's able to show support to somebody else. And that's what it's all about. To me, we don't, sometimes we question and we say, but why has this happened? But to me, it just really shows me that just as God cares for us in our time of grief, we're now sent to care for other people and give them comfort. And that's why I agreed to do this program tonight, just to be able to share whatever I can to help other people. So I want to talk a little bit about self-care after a loss. When we suffered a loss, it's really important to take care of yourself, and that's what helped me. You have to intentionally devote some time to yourself. And I'm just going to go through a few ways that you can do this. And then I'm going to also then talk about ways that other people can help as well in helping you through your grieving process. And I remember last week, the program last Monday, you all talked about grief and I was listening, and you did talk about some of these things. And I think these are universal truths. No matter the kind of loss that you suffered, all these things are universal truths that will be helpful. So the first thing I want to talk about is allow yourself to grieve. You've got to allow yourself to grieve. You've got to give yourself permission to feel the pain and the sorrow. If you don't do this, I really feel like you're not going to really be able to heal. I think to be able to heal, you've got to actually just allow yourself to just to process your thoughts, your emotions. People will tell you, oh, stop crying, just move on and all that. But I don't think it's really good advice. I really think that everybody has to process grief in their own time. And for everybody, it's a personal journey. And the second thing I want to say is that you should seek support. Surround yourself with people who love you, who care for you, people who can offer understanding. This can include friends, your family, support groups. For example, I joined a grief support group, the grief support group through a church. I joined it through a church, and I stayed part of that grief support group for about a year. It's called Grief Share, and many churches around the country offer it. And actually, I was introduced to this support group by my son's wife. Interestingly enough, they had a support group in their church, and so I actually joined the support group that they offer through their church, and I did it remotely. So that was actually really helpful. So the point I'm trying to make is that don't be hesitant to reach out for help when you need it, and even when you just want to talk, just pick up the phone and call somebody. It's not a time to feel that you're burdening other people, or that people are willing and they happy to listen to you and hear you talk and hear you share and want to help you as well. And then I want to also say that you should maintain a routine, because when you keep a routine, it can provide a source of normalcy and stability to you, and especially for your children as well. You know, if you have children who are also grieving, it's important for them to also have maintain their routines. And then, you know, taking care of yourself includes taking care of your physical health. Ensure that you're eating well, that you're getting enough sleep, and that you're engaging in physical activity. For me, you know, I like to walk, as Dr. O said, you know, and that really helps me to go out in the open, to go out in nature and just walk and, you know, listen to music as I walk or pray. You know, that's really helpful. But for each person, it's different. Whatever gives you, whatever you like to do that will give you physical exercise is what I would encourage. And my journey of self-care still hasn't ended. It continues today. I still make that deliberate effort every day to take care of myself. Engage in activities that you enjoy. You know, find solace in your hobbies or in activities that will bring you joy. I love to read, and so I read daily. I also participate in a couple of book clubs, you know, and for me, that's even part of the fellowship that I seek, because when I read and I belong to a book club, then we meet regularly and we can talk about the books. You know, for people, I understand that when you're grieving, some people sort of retire and don't want to be with people. I'm kind of the opposite. I seek company and I want to be with people. I want to feel that support, you know, that just from being with people. And so I found that really helpful. And it was during my grieving process that I launched my publishing company in 2020. You know, just after I lost my parents, I launched my publishing company, and I've published 3 children's books, as Dr. O mentioned, as well as a client's book. I've also traveled. I love to travel. And by the grace of God, last year I traveled to 11 countries. So travel is something that I like to do, and it gives me a different perspective to see what other people are doing around the world. And also want to encourage you to seek professional help. You know, do not hesitate to seek help from a therapist or counselor, just as I had mentioned earlier. And then one last thing I want to mention is that you should guard your heart, you know, because as you're going through this process, you're very vulnerable. And, you know, you have to be careful of predators, people who are not really your friends, but who just want to take advantage of your vulnerability. And prayer and faith, for me, that actually should have been at the top of my list. It's important to maintain your prayer life, to maintain your faith and your hope during your grieving process. And it's crucial to remember that God will never leave you nor forsake you. The next thing I want to talk about is supporting other people in their grief, supporting other people in their loss, supporting other people in their trauma, you know. And I just have a few tips for that, things that have helped me. You know, the first thing is just to be present. Just being there for somebody can be really, really comforting. Just being there and letting them know that you're there for them can be comforting. And then reaching out to them, you know, performing little acts of kindness, just as was done for Lydia in my picture book. You know, offer to bring them a meal, maybe take them out to lunch or dinner, get them their favorite book, call them and ask how they're doing. I remember last week, Monday, somebody mentioned that, you know, you should ask what kind of help they need, because sometimes the kind of help one person needs is different from the kind of help somebody else needs. And that's indeed true, you know. So it's good to ask what kind of help do you need? But I also find that spontaneous acts of kindness, even without them asking me, just calling and you know, sending something, it's just a small thing, a book or something, just makes me, or a card, just makes me really happy. Even going to the grocery store the other day, I was in line and the cashier was really nice and she had such a lovely smile, and you don't know how much that helped me. So just every little thing helps. Everything that we think is small, it's actually not small. So the bottom line is just be kind and continue reaching out, because grief actually can be a process that can last years. I think after the funeral is done, people assume, well, they go back to their normal lives and they assume that you're moving on. But really, it can take years. So it's good to remember that when you know somebody who's grieving, who has suffered a loss, that it can take years. So continue to be there for them over the period of years, if possible. And listen, allow them to share their feelings. Allow them to share their feelings without judgment, without trying to fix things. Offer them practical help. You know, maybe it's assisting with daily tasks or help in practical ways. Last Monday, people mentioned about how babysitting helped, babysitting children, picking up children from school, going to parent-teacher conferences, that sort of thing. That really helps, just being there to help with whatever the person needs. And again, if the person seems to be struggling, encourage them to seek professional help, to get professional help. And, as I said at the beginning that I think sometimes we're given this trial so that we can be there for other people. I do want to quote this Bible verse, if it's okay. And this is the theme of my book. 2 Corinthians 1, verses 3-5 says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort others, those in any trouble, with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ." So I think that sums it up. When we go through things, then we learn how to give back to other people. And I just find that that's very, for me, it's a source of comfort for me to be there for other people as well, to just help them as they're going through things. And so I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the forgotten grievers, what I call the forgotten grievers. And these are children, because children, they're called the forgotten grievers because their grief can be overlooked because they may not express it in the same way adults do. So it's crucial to provide our children with the same support and understanding, helping them navigate their emotions and ensuring they do not feel alone in their sorrow. And there are many different ways in which children can be overlooked. For example, they may experience or exhibit behavioral changes. They may not verbalize their grief, but instead they show changes in behavior, such as aggression, withdrawal, or regression to earlier developmental stages. And it's not because they just want to be naughty children or bad children. It's because that's their way of expressing their grief. So it's good to pay a special attention to them. If children are showing signs of change behavior, be more attentive and just be there for them. And children often process their grief through play. So because they're playing and they're still going over, they're still doing the things that they were doing, playing and doing whatever they were doing, it can be, we might think that they're not grieving, but it's really, they are grieving. So we have to sort of be cognizant of that. And also, unlike adults who might grieve consistently, they experience something called puddle jumping, where they move in and out of grief. So sometimes they seem unaffected, and sometimes they're deeply sorrowful. And so because of this, of the different ways that children can experience grief, adults can misunderstand what they're going through. So one way of misunderstanding is they may minimize their grief. They may think that they're too young to understand the loss or to feel its impact as deeply. And, and then we may also focus on our own grief. And then we might unintentionally neglect their emotional needs. And, we might not talk, we might try and shield them from reality, in trying to protect them. We might withhold information from them, but I think that just makes children more confused. Sometimes it's good. And this is Dr. David Kessler's insight, that it's good to actually talk to them and explain to them in children's terms what exactly is going on. And, adults may find it challenging to talk about death with children. How do you talk about death with children? You're trying to process it yourself. How do you talk to a child? But those are the things we should try and sort of figure out and work through and just make sure that they get all the support that they need. So, with Dr. Kessler and other experts suggest having honest conversations, communicating with them honestly, encouraging them to express themselves, provide stability for them and their normal routine. That makes them feel more secure during the chaos of what's going on. Give them a predictable environment so that they continue to feel safe and cared for, and validate their feelings. Let them acknowledge, let them know that it's okay to feel sad, that it's okay to be angry or to be scared or confused. Reassure them that their feelings are normal. Talk to them and just reassure them that it's okay that they're feeling that way, and see how you can be of help to them. So there are different things that you can do to help them, but one thing to bear in mind is they might also need professional help, like counseling as well, and school support. Informing their teachers and informing their school counselors about their losses is important so they can provide additional support and understanding in the school environment. Teach them, try and I've already talked about having them articulate their emotions, but just being there for them, paying them attention, giving them time is important. And that's what my children were older when we had all these losses, but I found that they were grieving, obviously, as I was, and we're doing it in different ways. And I had to make sure that I just continued to talk to them. Even the ones in college, I had to make sure that I was communicating with them, and they also felt free to communicate with me. And it's because we already had a close relationship from the beginning. So they felt free to be able to share what we're feeling. And I was able to also make sure that they were doing fine as best as they could. So every day still continues. Every day we have a conversation, and I make sure that I'm on the alert for things, for signs of change. So that's basically all I wanted to talk about. I know that people might have questions, and I was hoping that we'd have like an interchange of ideas. But before we do that, I wanted to play a video. It's a video of somebody called Jamie Zacharias. She's actually a pastor, and she, on her YouTube channel, she read my book, The Shepherd's Curse. So I wanted to share that with you, if that's okay, Dr. O.
Is that your personal property? Because otherwise,
yes. Well, it's on the YouTube channel, but it's open to everybody to watch.
I know,
and she's fine with me sharing it.
Cool.
It's on her YouTube channel, but she's fine with, we've shared it several times, and she's fine with that.
Fantastic. Okay.
So let me see whether I can do that. Okay, there it is. Thank you.
It's not playing yet. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Volume.
If you're feeling alone, or if you feel a lot of pain, welcome back to Story Time. Are you ready to hear a story? You are. That's awesome. High five. Well, tonight's story is really special because it's going to remind you that no matter what you're feeling, if you're feeling alone or if you feel a lot of pain, that you're not alone. Have you ever lost someone that you care a lot about? Maybe you lost one of your family members, like your mommy or your daddy, or your grandma or your grandpa. Or maybe you lost one of your best friends. Losing people can be really hard, and it leaves us feeling empty with a lot of pain and a lot of questions. And sometimes we don't find the answers to our questions or find answers at all. And that can leave us feeling empty with uncertainty. So tonight we're going to read The Shepherd's Care, written by Morenike Euba, Oyenusi. And this story is going to remind you that no matter what, you're not alone. Are you ready to read? All right, let's read. Lydia lived with her mommy and daddy. Her daddy fell sick, died, and went to heaven. Lydia was sad. The sadness was behind her eyes. They felt prickly. The sadness was in her tummy. It hurt. The sadness was in her legs. They felt heavy.
Tired of waiting months to get the team you need? Build a flexible workforce with Upwork. Upwork gives us access to over 10,000 skill sets we don't have in-house, so we can find and hire freelancers in days.
That's an ad.
Lydia asked her mommy questions. Why did my daddy die, Mommy? At dinner, Lydia asked more questions. Can you ask Daddy to come back? He needs to take care of us. At breakfast the next day, Lydia asked more questions. Mommy, Was it my fault that Daddy died? Lydia's mommy answered some of her questions. Your daddy died because it was time for him to go to heaven. It isn't your fault that Daddy died. He can't come back, but you will always have a father. I don't have all the answers, darling, but I will tell you a story. Lydia's mommy read her a story from the Bible. Jesus is the good shepherd, she said. When Jesus knew he had to leave the world, he asked his friend Simon Peter to be like a shepherd to take care of Jesus' sheep. God's children are his sheep. In the same way, God our Father sends people to help us to be nice to us and to care for us. He does this especially when our loved ones have gone to heaven, so that we will not be so sad. These people will look after us just as Daddy looks after his children. These people will look after you, just like your daddy looked after you. You watch and see. The Good Shepherd looked after Lydia. At the grocery store, when the plump, happy-faced woman helped her re-tie her shoelaces so she would not fall. At the braiding shop, when the hairdresser got Lydia a strawberry ice cream cone with rainbow-flavored sprinkles because it hurt to do her hair. At her best friend Gwendolyn's birthday party in the park, where lived the white, gray, and black ducks. Gwendolyn gave her a friendly-looking brown owl with green and white striped feet, so that she would have a gift too. The Good Shepherd looked after Lydia when she got off the school bus, and the crossing guard in the shiny green uniform held her hand and helped her across the road. When she tripped in the school playground, the thin, mean boy in 5th grade who called boys and girls names and made them cry swooped over to help Lydia get up. He asked if she was okay. When she forgot to take her math homework to school and her teacher said, "Don't worry about it, you can bring it in tomorrow." The Good Shepherd looked after Lydia. When Mommy hugged and kissed her for no reason at all. When Mommy bought her takeout fries 3 days in a row. When, although Mommy needed a nap, she watched Lydia's favorite show with her. Lydia felt very loved because all of the people God sent to take care of her. She was still sad and missed her daddy, but the kind people made her feel a little less sad. One day, a little girl called Anna tripped and fell in the school playground. Lydia knew that Anna needed a shepherd. She swooped over to help Anna get up and asked if she was okay. Wow, what an amazing story, and what a great reminder. You know, I recently lost somebody that was very close to me, and I'm sure you have lost somebody that was very close to you. One thing that I love about this story is that it reminds us that we're never alone. All the small things that are happening in our lives, from our families feeding us and taking care of us, to our teachers helping us through our day, from our friends checking on us and making sure we're okay, all of these things show us that Jesus is with us and making sure that we are okay. I know when you're hurt or feeling sad or in pain, it's hard to see the small things and appreciate them. But I love how this story reminds us that Jesus sends people our way to help us and be kind to us and to take care of us. So remember, the next time that you see somebody that's hurting or is sad or in pain, be there for them. Even if it's something that you're doing that's really small, because to them, it might not be so small. To them, it could be something really big. And this goes great with our Bible verse. Are you ready for our Bible verse? Okay, it goes like this. All praise to God our Father. He is our source of comfort. He comforts us in our troubles so that we can comfort others. And we can get our Bible books out and we can find that in 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 4. Can you do that with me? You can? Okay. All praise to God our Father. He is the source of all of our comfort. He comforts us in our troubles so that we can comfort others. And we can get our Bible books out and we can find that in 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 4. Great job, my friends. I just love that Bible verse because it reminds us that no matter what we're feeling, God is there to comfort us. And we can use that comfort and we can comfort others. So remember, my friends, if you lost somebody that is very close to you, whether it be your grandma, your grandpa, your mommy, your daddy, or your best friend, remember, you are not alone. God is there to comfort you and to get you through. And you can believe in that because you know what? God always keeps his promises. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and fold our hands, bow our heads, and let's talk to God and let's thank him for being our comfort. Are you ready to pray? All right, go ahead and fold your hands, bow your heads, and let's talk to God. Dear God, thank you for this wonderful story. Thank you for this wonderful reminder that we're not alone, that you put people in our path to help us. Whether it be small things or big things, you are taking care of us. And we know sometimes it's hard to see. We feel sad, we feel alone, we feel hurt and in pain. But Lord, we pray that you help us to remember that you are always there to comfort us. And we can believe in that because you said it in the Bible. Lord, we love you and we thank you for sending your son Jesus to help us and to love us. Lord, we pray that when we're feeling troubled, we come to you. We come to you in prayer. We love you and we thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking care of my mommy and my daddy and help us to have a great night's sleep. And we pray all this to you in your son's name. Amen. Wow, great job praying, my friends. I hope you enjoyed the story. Make sure you check out Amazon or Facebook for more books written by Morenike Euba Oyenusi. Also, check out her amazing website at www.paradiserestoredpublishing.com, where you can see all of her amazing books and learn more about the author. I hope you have a great night. Good night.
Thank you for sharing the video. So it's your turn to talk. Question and answers.
Thank you so very much for that. It's not even a presentation. Thank you for sharing. My sis in Nigeria wrote in the platform that she lost a sibling on June 10, buried her on June 21st, and her senior brother passed on June 22nd, the
Wow.
second, and he was buried on June 24th. She said, each of your 7 bullet points have been super useful in the last few weeks. The grieving process is hard, but it's easier managed if we maintain a routine. She said her daily yoga practice and mindful prayer moments throughout the day helped. Being among family helped also during the immediate loss period and is keeping them going. She said they are all mending. And I prayed that the Lord would comfort the entire family.
Yeah, I'm so very sorry for your loss. You know, I have no words, but you will receive comfort. God will be with you, and it will take time, but you will get through it. It will take time. But continue to surround yourself with love and with the comfort of family, and doing what you're doing, keeping a routine. You know, I'm there with you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam VP, kindly unmute. I am sorry, I'm in a different space. I'm remembering my parents. And you said something while Madam VP is unmuting and, getting ready to come on. Okay, she ready. I just wanted to say that I need to get to the place where I can actually grieve, because I haven't. And it's pathologic. It is not healthy. I plunged into funeral arrangements, taking care of this, doing the needful for my dad in 2018, my mom last year, February 2023. Immediately, I was arranging, taking her to the morgue, and I witnessed her passing, a transition. And I have not grieved, but that was one of the things you said. And I know that. But I need to get to the place where I can. I'm just numb.
Yeah.
I'm seeing every now and then that I get emotional, well up, and feels like I want to cry, and I take it back. So I need to get where I need to do the needful. Madam VP, kindly.
Can I say something very quickly to that? It does take time. We go through cycles. I mean, as I mentioned, I immediately launched into publishing my book, setting up my company. I was very busy. I was arranging funerals. I was doing all those things, you know. Sometimes I grieved, sometimes I didn't. I was just doing things. And then about 3-4 weeks ago, something happened that suddenly triggered all my grief. And that weekend, I felt, I mean, it's been 3 years, but I felt so bad. And I said to my, I don't know what's going on, but I think I'm grieving. Like I was just really, really grieving. It just really suddenly everything hit me. So I think we go through phases, but as you said, we have to allow it to happen. You know, sometimes it's a natural progression, but if you're feeling that you need to grieve, don't hold on. Don't ignore it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for your losses.
Thank you. Madam VP.
Well, thank you. I know we shared a lot last week, Monday, and we talked about, perspective of grieving or dealing with a loss, and you have dealt extensively with a 6-year-old or up to 8-year-old. The truth of the matter is, no individual has sufficient experience, education, ability, knowledge to thrive through the conditions of life without the cooperation of other people. It's not even just about loss. We all need each other. But there's a cultural nuance to this. The people from Nigeria, most of the time, if you're not wailing or banging the floor, hitting your head, it's like, oh, you're not grieving. We have even commercialized it to the point where they now hire people to come and cry when somebody passes, just to demonstrate that this person is being missed or that we are mourning. These are all superficial grieving. Deep grieving, without any doubt, again, your loved one may not be physically here, and the relationship you built with them cannot be obliterated just because they're no longer here. It is the thought of what you share with them. Endearing moments. That is what triggers the tear to say, really? So I'm never going to experience this again. I'm never going to have access to this person again. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. So it's a difficult position, and nobody can really prescribe what the other should do. You have to really do a self-examination of what works for you and do you. I wrote a book too, just like Morenike did. It was just a little book. Mine wasn't publicly published like that. Whatever outlet you can come up with is very important. But I want to talk about the teenagers. Children ages 8 and under, when they lose someone, not that they ever get over it, but as long as you create a happy or social environment for them, they can somewhat, survive. But the teenagers, first of all, the teenage age is a challenging age for most parents because you're dealing with different hormones, different needs, different expectations, a lot of argument, this and that. And now they have to deal with loss of a loved one, even if it is their friend, even if it's not a parent, if it is their friend. So this process is not a utopia. You don't just preach Bible to them or preach Quran to them and expect them to get there. You have to respect their process. You cannot impose anyone on them to talk to them, not even a pastor, not an imam, people, religious, accolade that they've been used to. They have to tell you, and most of the time, teenagers in that mode, they're using sign language, just facial expression. They don't use words. And when they use words, it's just, oh, yes or no. It doesn't matter what you say to them. Yes, no, 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 yes. So the teenage year is a challenging year. Now, to be compounded by a loss, it's not an easy path to walk through. But what I want to say that worked for us or worked for me was I was able to share my feelings with my children. I cried in front of them, giving them the permission that it's okay to cry. And sometimes they will ask me, why are you crying? It's like, isn't it obvious? I'm having to step in as a father. I'm having to step in as a mother. It's overwhelming for me. So dealing with loss with teenagers is a different level of grieving and trauma. You have to access, like I think maybe Dr. O mentioned it. Whatever action that you are going to employ, you have to be consistent with it, because there's no one step to get there. You have to be consistent with the action. It's almost like a stairmaster. If you're going to pray, one prayer doesn't do it. You continue to pray until your spirit is lightened up. That heaviness is not there. If you choose to listen to music or do yoga or do any kind of stuff consistently, if you're going to walk, one-time walk cannot do it. So it's about the consistency of what you think is your healing process. But we also want to talk about good grieving and bad way to grieve, because there are some bad ways to grieve. There are people that lock themselves up for days and for months, and they don't want to come out. Not because they want to remain in the dark, but they just feel completely hopeless at that time. I have encountered women who went through that. They went through complicated grief. And you don't know what I'm going through until you walk in my shoes. So one grieving a widow or widower cannot be compared with the other. But you've got to find your own happy space. What is it that can help you normalize things? Some people engage in shopping. Some people will cook and cook and cook and cook. But you have to find it. But what is important is you have to eat. You must get adequate sleep and be engaged in healthy habits. Find a helper. If the people around you are not positive, because you also have some people, for lack of knowing what to say, they say, unintentionally, they say mean-spirited things. I shared last week, I have some Christian friends that say, oh, you don't mourn like unbeliever. I don't understand what that means. It's just one of those cliches. How does unbeliever mean? We all believe, yeah, there will be rapture, we'll be in heaven. But right now, my pain is real. My struggle is real. So that's the way I'm expressing myself, not necessarily expecting you to do anything, but I just need to be myself. If you need to seek professional help, please do so. But having a daily routine is very important, because it is those consistency that will demonstrate result for you. And like I said, my philosophy is where support improves, outcomes will increase. Where you are surrounded by good people that encourage you to express how you're feeling, or just a listening board for you, just for you to listen, unjudgmental. Because we also have to be careful. Last week, we shared about things that you should or shouldn't say when somebody is grieving. Don't tell them, don't cry. They are letting out their pain. You don't need to tell them, don't cry. They're crying because they're hurting. If at anything, you pray with them, even at that moment. Give them a hug. Encourage them. Bring food. Just encourage them that it's going to be okay. You don't need to give false hope either. But encourage them, that it's going to be all right. Encourage them that I will do my best to be here for you. It doesn't mean you're going to be there every day or every hour. I'm a phone call away, whatever you need, let me know. Things like that, but don't stop saying to people, don't cry. We have to do our best to create a supportive environment for people who have lost someone. But with teenagers, it's also some of their friends. You have a lot of teenagers committing suicide. If any of those happen to be friend or in the circle of support of your own child, male or female, you have to listen actively. What they're saying, what that person represents to them, validating their feelings. You can't just say, oh, you need to stop crying, you need to move on with your own life. They don't process like that. So that is why I'm very grateful for this platform, Medical Monday. Because we have all bared our soul, we've shared our pain, not because those experiences make us an expert, definitely not me. I'm not an expert on loss, grief, and trauma. I can only give you what I have. And we are doing very well. We're doing very well. I also want to point out that even though your children are doing well academically, doesn't mean that all is well. There's a saying that wellness is not the absence of sickness or disease. They will always deal with that emotional loss occasionally. So you have to constantly check on them. Constantly distract them with other conversation. Getting to know about their love life, which will say, Mom, you don't want to talk about that? Just anything distracting. Those are the strategies that work for me. But nobody ever really truly get over the loss of a loved one. You just get stronger day by day to deal with that loss in a healthier way. Thank you. If anybody has specific questions, I'm here.
Thank you so much. And Madam VP, there are no experts.
Yeah.
There are no experts. Even counselors who are trained to counsel, they're important, they're very useful and timely when needed, but nobody's an expert because everybody grieves differently. The relationships that were forged before death occurs were different. That's why. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing again. I have a question for you from last week, but Mr. Imode has his hand raised and he has had it raised for a while. So I'm going to have him to unmute and ask his question or contribute first.
Thank you so much, Dr. O, as usual. I've been listening all along, and first of all, my condolences to everyone that's lost loved ones. But as I was listening to all of you, and I was thinking about what can be an underlying relief for a loss, has to be the belief of a resurrection hope. Because if you have that hope that you get to see your loved ones again, then all the things that you're going through, it ends with that hope of seeing that person again. And I'm saying that because the Bible talks, I'm going to pivot a little bit now to the scripture, because the Bible talks about this very eloquently, about the resurrection hope. There were even instances in the Bible, we think about the resurrection of Lazarus. That was a classical example that the Bible is trying to teach us the lesson of a resurrection hope, that we'll get to see our loved ones again, despite all the emotional because even Jesus himself was emotional, even though he knew he was going to resurrect Lazarus. We really have to begin to look at that underlying factor of the resurrection hope. Resurrection, as I was taking the notes here, resurrection is the translation of a Greek word that literally means a standing up again. What does that expression involve? According to the Bible, the resurrection hope is the conviction that a dead person can live again. The Bible further shows us that the person is restored in either a human or spirit body, depending on whether he has an earthly or a heavenly hope. So resurrection hope is a critical component of the entire grieving process, because once you understand that, and all the things, practical things we've talked about tonight is essential going through that process. But the end of it all is the fact that we'll get to see those loved ones again. And I strongly believe in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That is on point. Thank you for reminding us of that. Madam VP, you're on, man.
Yes, I wanted to respond to what Dr. Imodi said. Yeah, on this platform, there are Christians and there are Muslims. Maybe not everybody understand the process of resurrection. Yeah, and be that as it may, right there at the moment when you're grieving, it is difficult for you to comprehend about anything about resurrection or even whatever the Bible says. So we're talking about the kind of intervention that we can provide for one another. The story about resurrection, because in the Christian world, faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. You have to hear that later on and process it later on to console yourself. But that is not the card that you want to play where somebody just lost someone. To let them say, oh, don't worry, you will see your father again or your mother again. It doesn't work. Right there at that moment. For those who have lost someone, a loved one, you can probably attest to that right there at that moment. You know, it's like dropping off your kid in boarding school for the first day, and you're telling them, don't worry, you just go in there, do all you can. You're going to come out as a doctor. That kid doesn't care about the end at that point. He's talking about right now, feeling the separation anxiety. Yeah. So for us that are Christian, we may have that understanding about what the end will be. And okay, those are aspirations. These are things that we look forward to and we hope for. But it is not helpful when someone is dealing with a loss to talk about those level of spirituality. We have to be human. We have to be pragmatic. And we have to be sensitive to what that person is going through right there and then. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Morenike, please unmute. You have your hand raised. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to say to reply to a couple of things. The first is about what Madam Lara just said, which is indeed your immediate, when you've had a loss, your immediate thought, it's not immediately consoling that you're going to see them again in the future. I mean, I know that I will see my loved ones again, but in that immediate after effect of the loss, then that is not of much consolation. But having said that, it's not a lot. There's not a lot that is of much consolation. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, I do want to be reminded that I will see them again. Not that it's going to it makes a huge difference to how I feel, but I do want to be reminded of that I, not to lose hope, because hope is indeed what kept me going. Hope and faith kept me going, but in that immediate time, not a lot is consoling. I guess I wanted to say, whatever you might say. So the main thing is to be there for people. I think from my perspective, because again, we process things differently. Be there for people, let them talk, listen to them, and definitely don't tell them stop crying. As Madam Lara said, it's not helpful to say, hey, stop crying, because that's not helpful at all. You should actually encourage them to cry if they want to. And the other thing I wanted to respond to was about teenagers. Yes, I told my children were indeed teenagers when we had those losses. So, and that's why I took it, made sure I was there for them, and even till today to talk to them, because I know even teenagers process things differently and they might not necessarily talk. So the point I made earlier, I want to emphasize, which is that you should listen out and just don't assume that because they're not talking, that means they're not feeling. Just be there at whatever time to be there for them. I mean, just as you need care yourself, but also they need care. So as a person who's left there with them on a day-to-day basis, then we should definitely want to listen to them talk and share and encourage them to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Akitonde agrees with you, Madam VP, and so did Councillor Aramide Adedeji. They both agreed. But I have a question that is deep and important, and I don't know where this will take us in the chat box from Diola Famak. It says, I would like to thank the speakers, and I do pray that the God of restoration will restore our joys and what we have lost. I would like the speakers to address the matter of forgiveness. Sometimes we have guilt or we have anger towards the dead. Who would like to take that first? Madam VP, do you want to start that, or Morenike, which one? Who wants to take it first?
Well, forgiveness is an important aspect of healing, not even just towards the dead, but even for the living. Because unforgiveness stirs up anger. You become irritated. You become vindictive. You become calculating. It drives you to so many levels that even at some point you may not even remember why you have not forgiven that person. But when you do that, it's equivalent to you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You have to come to terms with what the departed person, if you're still angry, even if he was an abusive husband or abusive wife, you have to come to terms. And certainly at that point, the fact that the person is gone and you're here doesn't really mean that you've been vindicated. Just their time is up. It doesn't mean that they are worse people. But you have to come to terms and first of all, acknowledge the fact that there's some actions that that person committed towards you that made you feel a certain way. So you have to pour your heart out to God in prayer. You're only going to get this healing through prayer and asking God to help you to forgive, to help you to let go. And you balancing that to remember, because like they said, a broken clock is correct 2 times in a day, right? So this person definitely cannot be a demon. You need to try and remember the good part of them, because you were related to this person or you lived with this person. What brought you together in the first place? So you have to try and figure out what part of them that made you smile, what part of them that, was good to you. Remember that part, and remember that they're not adequate. Neither are you, that you're still here.
But I believe,
but first of all,
I believe the guilt and anger is towards the dead, not so much as they did, but that they died. leaving you.
Because they died?
Yes. This is the question is,
No, he's saying we have guilt,
no,
that we have anger towards the dead. Is
Yeah.
it towards death or towards the dead person?
towards the dead person.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm.
They leave you now. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I have had to, help people walk through that where they are angry. And sometimes they feel guilt that maybe they didn't do enough.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the person was sick. Maybe the situation where the death occurs. Maybe they send the person to go get milk and, something happened and they feel
Yeah.
guilt about it. That's what it is. The question is.
That feeling is inevitable. I had my share of it, but it's something that you need to snap out of it right away. Like I shared last week, my husband had high blood pressure and he was not in compliance in terms of taking his medication. So, but the night it would pass, he had been at home for 3 days. As a matter of fact, he picked up his mother from the airport, who just arrived from Nigeria on Friday. So on that Sunday night, he told me he was going to take the medication. And I said, well, I don't think you should take that medication because it makes you feel this way, that way. He said, okay. Then I walked away. When I came back into the room, he was still asking my permission to take the medication. So I said the same thing that I said the first time. Then he insisted to ask. By the third time, I said, okay, you know what? Take it. Passed away. There was just question mark on my head saying, wait a minute, did I take too long to give my consent for him to take that medication? Or just a temporary guilt, But without any doubt, I experienced that. So there will be different reasons why you would experience guilt. At some point, you need to rationalize it and emancipate yourself from that pain. You have no control unless you were driving in an accident and your passengers are the one that died. I don't know how to help you cope with that. You will need a professional. But in terms of just emotional guilt because you think you didn't do enough or you think you were too quick, no, you will get to a point where you realize you did all that you could with what you had. There's so many hands up, Dr.
Thank you. Yes, I know. I wanted you to complete your statement. Dr. Izugu, kindly unmute. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, sisters. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for really what you do. And thank God for giving you guys the strength to stand there during those difficult time and doing what you can to keep the children going, and God will continue to be your strength. I have a question, because as humans, when things are happening around you, you're a human being. Where does fear play a role in this situation? Like, let's say something like this happens and you're left with all of these things. Is there like any fear that comes on you? What if something happens to you yourself? What's going to happen to this children? And how did you deal with that? How, did that even come into play? Or even wonder, why is this happening? And how do you handle something like that?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that question. That's another deep one. Morenike, kindly unmute. You have to comment anyway, and you have your hand raised. So if you please respond to that question.
So I didn't actually, the sound, Dr. Ezego's sound is very low on my side. So I didn't actually hear what he said. I was going to respond to the previous speaker, previous questions about anger and unforgiveness and all that. And I just wanted to confirm that all those things, the resolution of all those emotions are necessary for healing. Sometimes it might even be anger God for allowing these things to happen. It might be unforgiveness towards God for allowing the things to happen. It might be unforgiveness towards yourself because you feel that maybe you did something wrong. I think it's natural as Madam Lara said, to go through all these emotions, but the main thing is not to dwell in them, because dwelling in them can be problematic. I think it's natural to feel these things as long as we work through them and put them in the past. But it may be that we need to seek professional help. Professional help can help us process those emotions, because it's important not to wallow in those emotions for a long time. I think it's an important part of grieving to feel those emotions, but just not to continue to dwell in them, because I think that could be damaging. And could you please tell me what Dr. Ezego was asking?
Yeah, before I do that, Sister Lois Watson Byers said, we have to learn to meet people where they are. Like you just said, it's a process and everybody would experience this differently. It's very important that we learn to meet people where they are. Thank you so much for that comment. I think that is key, a huge take home. You muted yourself. So I'm going to go to you unmuted now, but you are not
Yes.
you're not on camera.
No, I'm not, but let me start my video again. Okay.
So the question is, where does fear fit in here? In this whole process, somebody passes. Do you feel fear of, this has happened to somebody, this person is going to happen to me, or something? Where does fear fit in? Or is there fear, the emotion of fear at all in this process?
Indeed, I think that's one of the things that is natural to feel: fear that it's going to happen to you, fear that you're going to lose other loved ones, fear of so many things. But fear, what I tell myself, in fact, I tell myself this several times a day, that God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Because yes, you do feel fearful, but then you've got to deal with the fear. Don't dwell in the fear. Like with any negative emotion, the thing is not to stay there. The feelings arise, but then you have to find a way of dealing with them so that you don't just sit there. So when I have any fear coming upon me, and it's not necessarily, it might just be a bit of anxiety about something, small, but I quickly dismiss it. And I tell myself it's not a good emotion to have, and I dismiss and I move on. But if you're persistently being afraid, then I think, again, you should seek professional help.
Thank you. So before I call on Madam VP to please take the floor again and comment on that, I just want to say that there are 5 stages that people go through in this state. And we talked about them last week. There's denial, anger, and that's one of the emotions that Deola Famak mentioned. She mentioned, forgiveness, the feeling of guilt, and anger towards the dead. Anger is an emotion that, some people will feel it may be towards the dead, it may be anger that the person died and why and all of that. Bargaining is another stage. Depression is another stage, and acceptance is another. And this can occur in any sequence. It doesn't have to occur in the stages that I mentioned them. It's the stages that we memorized it. It's why I said them like that, but somebody they can accept right away, but then the next stage may be denial, complete denial, or then they get angry. So it's important to know that, and that everybody, like it's been echoed over and over again, go through this differently, and one size does not fit all. Kindly unmute, Madam VP.
Thank you. Dr. Ezeko, thank you for that question. Fear is a major component of grieving in so many ways, because they are God created 2 people to be parents. So one person is suddenly gone. Now you have to absorb their responsibilities. There's always that sense of inadequacy. How am I going to do it? We all have expectation in different conditions of life. And the most fundamental of these conditions, or if they're unattended, it could create either hardship, difficulty for you, depression, failure in our life. So for me, at the time, for example, I never paid bills. My husband that paid all the bill. He paid mortgage, he paid light bill, all the utility bill, everything. So I'm like, how am I going to do that? For 3 months, I did not even remember to go pick up the mail. At that time, it's been 17 years. All this paperless thing was not common. So he had a role that he fulfilled in the house. So me trying to juggle that, as a wife, I already feel overwhelmed raising 4 children. Now the partner that's supposed to be there is gone. Of course, the future appears to be uncertain. So the fear is number one thing that plays a major role. But you have to come to the point where you need to start writing down, what do you need to balance the role or responsibility of the other person that is gone? How you have to negotiate. Life is about transaction. Which of those things can some of the kids step up? Even if it's a 6-year-old. You know how daddy always lock the door? Create a safety officer. Well, you're the big girl now in the house. Can you check all the doors to make sure they're locked? You have to share roles, share responsibility, and don't be drowned in thinking that you are all going to have to do it alone. There might be outsiders, but if you have children, and our community is blessed with a lot of people, a lot of helpers. Some people would come, friends will visit you every day or every Friday, to help you get back on your feet. Fear is real because the struggle ahead of you is real. Yeah. If it's your husband that drop off the children in school in the morning and you just go to your work, now your route is being reframed or redirected. You have to figure out how you're going to get them. And that may mean you're waking up 1 hour ahead of time to do all of that. Before you go, many times I'm on my way to my work before I realize that my kid is in the car seat. Yeah. So those things are real, and there's no way that we can trivialize them. But fear is one of those things. So, but yes, in the Christian world, say be anxious for nothing, or you've not been given the spirit of fear. Those at that point, somebody preaching it to you feels like cliche. You're afraid of what's going to happen tomorrow. You are, because you don't know how. But don't cave in. Don't hurt yourself. Don't give up. You have to find solutions to those things that you're afraid of. You have to confront that fear one way by having a checklist of things that you're going to do. If you're scared that, okay, my husband was the breadwinner, where am I going to get money to do all of those things? Figure out your finances. If you have to downsize your home and move to a smaller thing, you must take action, effective action. You have to write down what are you afraid of? There will be scarcity here. We don't have enough here. I don't know how to do this. You have to find help for those things that is creating anxiety in you. Otherwise, if you don't take care of yourself, self-care, you can't take care of the children. That's the point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a follow-up to that. Yoruba say, "Ọkọ mi kú sàn ju ọkọ mi nù lọ," and I'll interpret that my husband is dead is better than my husband is lost. I mean, it's just not around. It's not there for whatever reason. I'm not alone taking care of the children and all. What's your take on that? Because that's another, source of grieving, fear, pain, what 2 people are doing has now become what 1 person is doing, and the children don't have access So the father, even though the father is still physically alive, but not for whatever reason present. What's your take on that?
Me or Morenike?
Then
Yeah.
I'll get her to back you up.
Yeah, you see, that is one area where I truly believe you have to seek counseling. That is a mega anger issue, because for some weird reason, every single day you're going to be lashing out and say that blah, 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 even talking bad about that other person in front of the children if you don't control yourself, and that would not help. You have to be able to deal with that and recognize if there's a judicial resolution to it, maybe somebody is seeing the kid in 1 week or doing another. But you have to be careful not to talk evil, no matter how the children will get to that point where they recognize where the flaws are. But you have to be careful not to be the one pumping the children with negative impression of who their father is, because you're sowing a very bad seed.
Yeah.
And they will manipulate the both of you to get their way. That will be detrimental to them, because they want to get away from this and get away from that. And they see children, they take advantage of situations like that. So you have to seek professional help where you can have conversations with your spouse. If you have to be writing these down, these are the expectations. If you're supposed to drop off the kid at 4 p.m. and you know that you're already 30 minutes running late, don't just show up anyhow. It is simple courtesy that you're texting him or her to say, look, I'm sorry. I am running late. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Because these are some trivial things that produces anger between, separated or divorced parents. It's always about autonomy. Everybody wants to be in control. Everybody wants to, demonize the other one. But that's not going to solve the problem. But you must seek counseling, professional counseling, where you are able to articulate your needs and your wants without expressing anger. This is a very important role for anyone who's going through this. Yes, you feel estranged, you feel like you're there to, but you cannot allow your children to now hate you because you keep talking bad about the other spouse, because you will get to that. And they're going to become parents someday. So you have to make the best use of whatever situation you're in. But this, for sure, I say get professional help, because it helps you to be objective. It helps you to have a crystal clear focus about what should be done, when it should be done, and how it should be done for your benefit and the benefit of your children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Morenike, please give it a stab.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this discussion just reminds me even more how individual everybody's situation is and how individual our feelings are, because fear can come up in so many different forms. With me, I've experienced the loss of parents, and then a brother and a husband, and so the fear manifests in different ways. My fear is not associated with whether I'm picking up the children from school. There might be other things that will trigger fear. So I just wanted to just really emphasize that, as Madam Lara said, identify what your fear is, because sometimes we don't even know what we're afraid of. So to be able to deal with fear, you've got to identify exactly what it is that's making me afraid. And then sometimes when you identify that fear, you realize that it's actually really not a real fear. And I say not a real fear, you've been feeling it, but there's really no basis for that fear. And so maybe you can deal with it when you identify, you can deal with it better. And everyone's way of dealing with emotions are different. But for me, encouraging myself in the Lord and also telling myself I do not have a spirit of fear has actually really helped me. That helps me to get by day to day. When I have a fear, I say that I can move on and I'm able to cope better with things, So each person just identify exactly what it is. And sometimes you do need professional help if you find that you're not resolving what the negative emotion is.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that input. Sister Rose, kindly unmute You think your hand? Yes. Sister Rosemary is an
Yes,
amazing counselor.
ladies, thank you very much for giving us this information. I have been listening to you. My condolences to you, ladies, and you have been very, very courageous, and I really applaud you for that. And my own take here is that I would encourage every one of you, the kids, everyone to get professional help. Because we're talking about fear right here. There's something, once there's a loss in the family, fear is part of the feelings that you're going to be feeling. Confusion will be there, shock and belief, anger, depression, all kinds of negative feelings are going to come in. So with that fear, it's going to, when the fear comes in, it has actually triggered something that has been there before. And when you have a loss in the family, you end up losing your identity. So it's always very, very important and necessary. If you cannot resolve it, just like Sister Morenike said, get a professional help so that they can really deep down into what is really going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I agree. You're on point. This has been, again, just so impactful. I have learned so much. I need healing. And I need healing. And I identified that, right away. I did last week. I didn't verbalize it. It was very charged last week also. And I felt, I need to be fair and share. Dr. Veronica said she cannot thank you enough, our speakers, for the amount of training and gift you gave us, for sharing you and your experiences. God bless you. And thanks again, Dr. O, for this phenomenal platform of education. Blessings to our community. Auntie Susan, my auntie, said, as very, very emotional as this topic is, she says a big thanks to both Attorney Morenike and CEO Lara for sharing and rendering your personal experiences. A lot of take-homes, she said. God bless and keep you up in his bosom. Thank you. And our counselor, Aramide Adedeji, I cannot wait, for when she comes on the forum to discuss an important subject that, for goodness sakes, we've been trying to get the perfect person for 2 years. So I think she's the one. She says also, as was mentioned about how to support children where you have to watch out for a child who is expressing themselves through pouring themselves into work, adults do the same. She said she did not grieve the loss of her dad, but focused on his burial and tying up loose ends. Thank you. That's what I did. She said she needed the work after all, and she sought it out basically a year later, which is fantastic. It's been since 2018 for me, and then a year and a half for my mom. I need to get it together. It's too long. I need to get it together. And I pray that the Lord would help me to figure out exactly how to do that for me, because it's important to grieve and to come to that place of peace.
Closure.
Mary, what did you say?
Closure.
Closure. Thank you. That's the perfect word. We all need to get there to where we get to that place of closure. Thank you so very much. This has been amazingly impactful. Thank you for sharing, for giving of yourself to us. There's no better way to learn than to learn from personal experiences as you have shared with us. May the Lord bless you both. And everyone else who has contributed tonight, excellent questions. Thank you. I would yield back first to Madam VP to give us your closing remarks, then to Morenike to give us our closing remarks. What we need to take home. Key things, like a minute. Key. Thank you.
All right. Well, first of all, Dr. O, thank you so much for creating this platform and giving people the opportunity to engage in a subject that is so sensitive, because a lot of people are going through and we don't know what they're going through. And a lot of things have been shared on the chat box, which again, I'm very sorry for everyone who's going through this loss, but there is hope and there is help. One of the takeaways that I would recommend for today is that you have to treat your life like a transaction. You have to give something to gain something. In other words, you have to sacrifice certain things for you to be happy. You feel like crying and wallowing in tears? No. You have to be brave in order for that happiness, good vibes to come through, to come in. You can feel helpless. You have to deal with your fear head on. What are you afraid of? List them and try to identify who can help you alleviate this, who can support you in these areas, and what is expected of you. For self-care, you must break into treachery. If you're feeling that you don't want to shower, that's not a good thing. You must shower twice a day, in the morning and at night. It has a way of refreshing you. But anything you do, whether it's walk, put on your AirPods. If you like talking, just keep talking. Nobody knows whether you're talking to somebody else or you're talking to yourself. But just pour your heart out. You've got to talk it out. And you have to come to a place where you trust at least one person. And if you don't know anyone that you feel you can trust, then talk to a counselor. Of your concerns, you're rationalizing it and you're not going to get any answer. But you must engage in a routine that you see that this, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, is helping you to get better, to handle what you have to handle. Because your responsibilities are not going to go away. You still have to be the parent. You still have to do what you have to do. Like one of my daughters reminded me, she was only 6. When I would yell and get mad, why are you always calling me 10 times? Where are you, Mom? Where are you? And when I came home one day, she said, Mom, you're the only parent I have. That was a light bulb moment for me. So if she feels like calling her parent 10 times a day, I'm the only parent, so I'm going to get the 10 calls. I'm supposed to call him Mom. If Mom yell at you, then you call Dad, and Dad picks up the phone. But there's no Dad. So we have to understand that whatever we are left with, whatever life has dealt us, we have to step up, embrace it, figure out how to repack your luggage and how you're going to move on. But you must have a plan. You must have a plan to overcome some of these things. And it's not a cakewalk. It is not a utopia where you just get there and think it's done. You can sleep in the church 10 times a day. If you have not wrestled with this in your own heart, it's not going to do anything. They can put 10,000 gallons of anointing all on you, or the imam can give you whatever. If you have not dealt with it personally, the healing begins with you. All right. It begins with you individually, and whatever it takes, do it. At some point, I'll just go into the closet. I'll wear my husband's shirt just to smell his perfume. And then I cry. And then I get over it. Whatever it takes. But try to think of the fond memories that you built with that person. And let that encourage you to continue to do your part. And God is always there. God never leaves, regardless of what faith you subscribe to, God never leaves any of us. you must have a faith component in your healing. Very important.
Thank you so much. Dr. and Dr. Ajay said it begins with you. That's what you're telling us. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Morenike, your parting words for us. What should we take home?
I want to acknowledge the fact that there are different losses and each is equally important. There's not one loss that is that causes more grief than the other, whether it's the loss of a spouse, of a sibling, or a close relation or a friend. I think each one is just as impactful, and so we have to acknowledge when we've lost somebody, allow ourselves to grieve and not feel bad that we're feeling these emotions. Allow yourself to grieve, and also if you have children, demonstrate to your children a healthy form of grieving. Show them that you are grieving. You don't have to hide it from them. I think whatever their age, let them know it's okay to feel sad, to feel grief. The second thing I wanted to say is to emphasize is self-care, taking care of yourself, making sure you're eating well, you're eating healthily, you're doing whatever form of exercise you like, and that you're still engaging in activities that bring you joy. Like for me, it's reading. I like to read, and that brings me joy. What brings me joy is walking. And what brings me joy is sitting with my children and watching a show together, or going out to get an ice cream, or just taking a walk together, or just chatting, or being with friends and going out to dinner. And that brings me to the next thing, which is the power of community. Community is very important. It's very important that we are there for one another. And I cannot emphasize this enough, that we're there for one another. We're cognizant that people that we know may be going through something. They may not talk about it, but just to be extra sensitive and kind to people. And likewise, if you're going through something, reach out to people. It's okay. Reach out to them and tell them, I need help. I need to talk. So community is extremely important. And I want to end by saying that I'm here for anybody who wants to talk. Feel free to reach out. I'll do whatever I can to listen and to help whatever I can. Just feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. She specifically requested that our information is posted, and thank you so much, Dr. and Dr. Ajay, for having done that. Madam VP, also Madam CEO, is available. You need to talk to her. She said it last week. She's available. These two powerful sisters of ours not only came to share their experience to help us, they are willing to be there for anyone who needs to talk, who needs encouragement. They've been there, done that. So our counselor, Aramide Adedeji, said to you, Morenike, she said, God bless you, Sister Morenike. I have been thinking that, she said she has been thinking that the whole call. She works with clients who are grieving because of a divorce, loss of bodily functions due to an illness, etc., that they are all important. And yes, you have agreed with her. Dr. and Dr. Ajay said it's okay to grieve. Every loss brings its one pain. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly awesome. If you need to reach Madam VP, Madam CEO, ask me. If you need to reach Morenike, ask me. I will share their information. Until we see next week, please, COVID is raging again.